So think about this for a second. Why do you eat the way you do? Or greet people a certain way? Or feel a sense of pride when you see a particular flag? These things aren't just random quirks. They're actually part of this invisible code that shapes pretty much our entire lives. And today, we're going to try and crack that code, diving right into the core ideas from this university text on culture and society.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with a huge question. What really makes us human? Then, we'll try to pin down what exactly culture is. After that, we'll take it apart to see its pieces, figure out how it gets passed down, and finally, really understand its job as our social blueprint.
So, to really get a handle on culture, we've first got to look at what makes us so different from, well, every other creature out there.
We always think it's our big brains, our intelligence, right? But what if the real dividing line, the thing that truly separates a human society from, say, a herd of animals, what if it's something else entirely?
This is where the source material draws this incredibly sharp line. See, on one side, you've got the animal kingdom, and it's running on what you could call biological hardware. It's pure instinct. But then there's us. We run on a kind of social software, a system that we have to learn and share with each other.
And here's a perfect way to think about that. An animal gets hungry, it just eats. That's the urge. But for us, culture takes that exact same urge and wraps a whole ritual around it. Think about a family dinner, with rules, manners, and shared meaning. It takes our basic instincts and gives them a much deeper purpose.
Okay, so we're talking about this social software that guides us. It's time to give it its proper name and try to define the code of culture.
And get this, trying to pin down one single definition for culture? Well, it's famously difficult. These two sociologists found over 150 different academic definitions for it. That just tells you what a massive concept we're dealing with.
But our source text points us back to one of the classics, one of the earliest and most important definitions out there. This quote from E.B. Tyler back in 1871 really gives us a great starting point. Culture isn't just one thing. It's this complex whole of basically everything we learn and do as part of a group.
So, if culture is this complex whole, what are the individual parts? Let's kind of pop the hood and break down the anatomy of a culture.
Now, the source text we're digging into for this explainer is in Hindi, and this heading you see here, it translates to Characteristics of Culture and Cultural Form. It actually gives us a really clear way to break culture down into its core pieces.
And here they are, the building blocks. It all starts with these tiny little things called traits, like a simple handshake. You put enough of those together and you get customs. And those customs are shaped by our beliefs. The whole system gets passed around using the super powerful tools of language and symbols.
And this gets at one of the most powerful things culture does. It takes perfectly ordinary things from the real world and just injects them with this extraordinary shared meaning.
I mean, just think about a national flag. As our source explains, to someone who doesn't share that culture, it's just a piece of cloth with some colors and shapes on it. But to the people of that nation, well, it's something way, way more.
It's that shared understanding that does the magic trick. All of a sudden, that piece of cloth stands for identity, for history, for belonging. That right there is culture in action.
This brings us to a super important point. If culture isn't biological, if it's not in our blood, then how does it survive? Well, the answer is right there. It's learned, not inherited.
This right here, this is probably the single most important idea in this section. Unlike animals, who get their behaviors passed down through their genes, everything we call culture, how we think, how we act, what we believe, all of it has to be learned.
The source draws a really clear line in the sand here. On one side, you have the stuff you're born with, your biological hardware. But on the other, you've got everything you pick up from your family and your society. That's your cultural software.
And this is the engine that keeps culture running. It's this constant cycle, right? We're born, we learn, we join in, and then we teach the next ones. This whole process, this cultural transmission, it's like the invisible thread that connects all of human history.
Okay, so we've seen what culture is and how we pass it on. But the biggest question is, why? What's the ultimate point of having this big, complex social blueprint anyway?
Well, the answer, as our source text puts it, is actually pretty simple but also really profound. It points to the work of anthropologist Ralph Linton, saying that culture is basically the way of life for a group of people. It's quite literally the instruction manual for how to live together.
Yeah, think of it like society's operating system. It gives us a guide for how to act, it helps us figure out how to get our basic needs met, and maybe most importantly, it gives us that sense of identity and belonging. It's what gives our lives meaning.
And all of this leaves us with a really powerful thought to end on. You are a link in an incredibly long chain. A whole culture, a complex blueprint, was passed down to you. So the real question is, what parts of that blueprint are you going to choose to pass on?